Begin today the Gemara on Daf Kuf Zayin, right at the beginning of the Amud, where it says Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. So the Gemara is discussing the individuals that are mentioned in the Mishnah that don't have a chelik lo'olam haba, and one of them is Achitophel. So Achitophel was an advisor by David HaMelech, and then he joined Avshalom to rebel against David HaMelech. So now this Achitophel, the Gemara here is bringing the story that happened with David HaMelech, which there were different reasons why Achitophel decided that David HaMelech cannot be a king anymore, and he decided to rebel against him. So one of the reasons is the famous story of David and Bathsheba. And here the Gemara brings the story of David and Bathsheba, Barichas Gedaila. Okay, Zok the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says, Nerei Rav, Lo'olam al yavi adam atzmel yedei nisayin. A person should never bring himself to be tested. Shaharei David Melech Yisrael, hevi atzmel yedei nisayin. David HaMelech did bring himself to be tested, but v'nichshal, he failed. What happened? He says today, why, when we daven, we say, referring to the Eibishter with the names of the Ovis, but David is not said. And even though he was still alive, and it says the Eibishter is not miyachid his name, when a person that's alive, the Marsha says that David HaMelech knew that even after he's going to pass away, Elokei David will not be said. And obviously he wasn't saying this because he wanted the honor for himself. He wanted to have that same level of oneness with Hashem. Why can't I be zeicha to be on this level? So Amar Hashem says, Inu minsuli, they were tested by me, but va'at le minsasli, you were not tested by me. So you're not zeicha to this. So Amar Lofanov, he says in front of Hashem, Ribayna shalaylam b'chaneni v'naseni, challenge me, test me. Shenemar, as it says, the pasuk in Tilim, he said, b'chaneni Hashem v'naseni v'gaymer, test me, and I want to pass the test, and then I'll also be on this level. So Amar, the Eibishter says, Minas nalach, I will test you, and not only that, I'll do something that will make it easier for you. Vavidna milse bahadach, I will do something for you, delididhu loy haydasinu, for them, by the Ovis, when I tested them, I didn't let them know in advance regarding what the test is going to be. Vilu anach kamidinalach, but by you, I'm going to let you know what the test is going to be with. Dimanasinalach bedvar erve, I'm going to test you regarding a forbidden relation. Now, what happened? Miyad, right after this, the pasuk says that Vayihi le'ei serev, it was towards the evening, and Vayakum David mal mishkavai, and David gets up from his bed, begaimer. So the question on this pasuk is, what does it mean? He's sleeping during the day, and he's getting up towards the evening. Well, he didn't sleep during the day. So Amar Rav Yehuda says, Shahafach mishkavai shalayla le'mishkavai shalayim, that instead of being in the bed at night, he was by day because he knew that he was going to be tested by a dvar erve. So therefore, he was with his wife by day instead of by night, in order that his Yetzer Hara should already be satisfied, and therefore it should not be difficult for him to overcome any test that would be at night. But he made a mistake by doing this, thinking that this would make it easier for him to overcome such a test. V'nis alma mimeno halacha. He forgot the following halacha, which is that Ever Katan Yesh Badam. There's a small limb in a person's body. Masbiyoi Rav, if you satisfy it, it becomes even just more hungry and wants more. Umar Ivai, if you allow it to be hungry, Sava, then it becomes more satisfied. And as it says, it's not only benegate to this inyan, but it's b'chlal benegate to a person that tries to run after his taivas begashmius in the world, that the more a person controls himself, the more you actually are satisfied. So over here, in this case, where David HaMelech said that he's going to do something in advance that he should not then have a bigger nisayon later, was not according to this nature that Chazal say. So now what actually happened when he got up then at night? Vayisalach al gag beis HaMelech. He walked on the roof of the palace, and he sees Isha rechetzes me'al hagag. There's a woman that's showering herself. And va'isha toives mara ma'oid Bathsheba, that's the end of the pasuk. This was a woman, a very good-looking woman. Now, what happened? Bathsheba havakachayfe reisha. She was washing herself, but it was tusichalsa. It was under a cover, under a kind of chuppah or under some kind of a barrel. She was covered. But now, asa satan, the satan came. Idmi lei kitziperta. The satan appeared to him like a bird. So pasuk bagira, he took an arrow to shoot at this bird. Now pasuk lachalsa, instead the arrow went on this barrel that was covering Bathsheba. Igle v'chazia, and she was exposed and revealed to him. Miyad, after this, the pasuk says, Vayishlach David sent a messenger, Vayidrash Leisha, and he demanded that she come to him. Vayomer, and he said, Halezois Bathsheba Basaliam Eshes Uriah Chiti. This is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and she is the wife of Uriah Chiti. And Vayishlach David Malachim, David sent messengers, Vayikochel, and he took her, which means he made a kiddushin, he got married to her. Vatova Elav, she came to him, Vayishka Vima, and then the pasuk says, Vihimis Kadeshes Mitumasa. And she was actually not a Tomei Nida. It actually says that when she was washing herself, she was preparing to go to the mikveh, and she went to the mikveh, and she was not a Tomei Nida, Vatoshav al Beisa, and she went back home. So this is the story of David HaMelech and Bathsheba. Okay, so now, regarding this story, it says, first of all, she was also a grandson of Achitophel. That's why Achitophel then had a big kapeda on this. And another thing is, she was married, she was an Eshes Ish, she was married to Uriah Chiti. But the Gemara says in Shabbos, a famous Gemara, that her husband, Uriah, was out in war, fighting then. And the husbands, when they would go out in war, they would send a get krisis to their wife, so that if they don't come back home alive, then she'll be divorced. According to some, the get krisis is with a Tanai, that only if he does not come home alive, the get will take effect. And here, Uriah Chiti did not come home alive. So Lamafreya turns out that she was not married to him. Taisvis over there in Shabbos actually says it was even without a Tanai. A get she was totally not an Eshes Ish. So really, she was completely mutter to be married to David HaMelech. And not only that, the Gemara is soon going to say that Bathsheba was really destined to be married to David HaMelech. This was his zivug. This was one of his wives.
Was married?
Okay. What?
David was married?
He was. David HaMelech had 18 wives, right? But Bathsheba was one of them. Okay, and this was really a wife that he was supposed to marry. But nevertheless, it looked like she was an Eshes Ish, and the way this happened, this was something that this is the test that David HaMelech said that David should test him with. And v'haina d'chsev is regarding this that the pasuk says, "Untilim b'chanta libi b'pakadata laila," that you tested my heart, and that this was at night. Tzraftani bal timtza, but you wanted to be mitzaref me, like when you come and purify silver or any metal, and you did not find that I did not pass the test. And then the pasuk says, "Zamoisi bal yaver pi." What does this mean? Omar, he said, "Eichuz mama nafel b'pumei." Demand the sonily. Where is this mama, which means something that would muzzle the mouth of the one that hates me, referring to himself, that I should have closed my mouth and not said to the Eibishter that he should test me. And I shouldn't have said such a thing, because he did not pass this test of this with Bathsheba.
The only thing is because she looked like my mother.
Correct. Yeah, the Gemara says the Gemara says that Kala Eimid David Chata Ein Elataya. One that says that David HaMelech sinned is making a mistake. This was all Menas Shamayim. This was where Shlomo HaMelech was born from this, right? Shlomo HaMelech, which then built a base of Mikdash, and then Mashiach comes from this. This is all L'mayla Baruchni. Is just like by the story of Loit and Amanim Mayev Bechlal. The way you see how it happens for Mashiach to come into the world. These are all Dvarim Nestadim. Over here, this as well. But Afal Pikain, it's considered to be an Aveda for David HaMelech, at least the way the Gemara is describing this, but that he needed a kapara and a machila, as the Gemara here is going to say Barichas now. Yeah, similar. Dorash Rave Darshan. What's the meaning of the capital until now? This is the capital where so Lam Natseach David Bashem Chasisi. Eich Taimru Lenafshi. How do people say to me that Nudi Harchem Tzipar, that your mountain has moved because of a bird? What does this mean? Forgive me for this avera, so people shouldn't say Harsha, the mountain among you, I'm referring to the king, to David HaMelech, that Tzipar Nadadasai. It's just a bird that appeared there that caused him to stop learning and to shoot an arrow at this bird, which ended up going on the place where Bathsheba was. Only a bird caused the mountain to move. So therefore, forgive me for this avera. What's the meaning of the capital in Tilim? This whole capital is all about this Indian of David HaMelech asking for forgiveness for this Aveira. I sinned to you alone. I did what's evil for you in your eyes. That you should be right. It should be revealed that what you said is true. And you're right in your judgment. What is he saying here? David says to the Eibishter, Galya v'yediyah kamach. It's revealed to you. If I wanted to overcome a Yetzirah in that moment, I had the ability. But I said, it shouldn't be said, that a servant was stronger, or that he won his master. Then in this case, where David HaMelech says to the Eibush to test me, why am I not having your name, Elokei David? And if David HaMelech would prove, Kaviyachli, prove that he was right and not the Eibush, he didn't want that to happen. That's what's behind this. It's also a pella, huh?
Was doing him a favor.
Yeah, also a pella. What this means exactly? Okay, the Mefarshim explained this. That okay, I'll upon him, but you see here that it doesn't. It's not an Inyan of a chet kipshutay. The pasuk says, "Ki ani litzela nochain u'machayvi negdi samid." So this pasuk is also talking about the story with David and Bathsheba, and it means as follows: Ru'uya hoisa Bathsheba besaliyam leDavid misheishes yimei bereishis. This was his wife, already destined to be from the beginning of creation, and that's the beginning of the pasuk where it says Ki ani litzela nochain. Tzela is a term for a wife that comes from the side of a person, and nochain means it was already set from before. But it came with this in this hurtful way, meaning that it came in a time where it wasn't yet exactly the time when it was supposed to be, and therefore it comes with a machav. She was really supposed to be his wife, but like a person that eats figs before it's ripe, so he was before the time, but this was really his wife. There is another pasuk that's going on this as well. Ubitzali, which means a wife. Tzela, Somchuv and Asafu. People are make jokes and they gather around me. Nesfu alai nechem. People that are nechem, people that are invalids, they come and they gather around me. V'loyadaiti. I make myself like I don't know it. I don't hear them when they embarrass me about the story. Karu v'loy damu. When if they would tear me, there would be no blood. What does this mean? It's known to you. If they would tear my flesh, there'd be no blood to drip out of my body. Because when a person gets so embarrassed, then the blood goes away from the person's body. It's like the blood. So he's saying that they're like a person's face turns white and there's no blood. So he was embarrassed so much there's no blood anymore. Not only this, when they would learn in the halachas where it speaks about the Arba Mises Bezdin, they would stop from their learning, and they would embarrass me and say to me, David, haba al eshes ish misasi b'ma. One that has a relation with an eshes ish, what misa does he get? And amartilem, and I would answer, haba al eshes ish misasi b'chenek. His misa is chenek, but v'yesh lo chelik lo'elam haba. But he has a portion in the world to come. And therefore, if you're embarrassing me, you don't have a portion in Olam Haba. David HaMelech, even when he was already older and sick, Shal David, he had 18 wives, and he made sure to give the time of marital relations for all of his 18 wives. Shenem, as the pasuk says, Yagaiti ban chasi. I was working very hard when I was already weak, and I was moaning and groaning. But Ascha b'chalayla mitasi b'dimasi arsi am said that in every night he was made sure to give the time for his wives. Rav Yudah said in the name of Rav, Bikish David, Lava David Zara. There was one time that David HaMelech wanted to serve Avodah Zarah. It doesn't mean literally he wanted to serve Avodah Zarah, as the Mefarshim say. It means he wanted to do something which would appear that he is serving Avodah Zarah. And what was the reason for this? As we'll see, the Gemara is going to explain there, because when Avshalom, his son, wanted to kill him, and he was afraid that would actually happen, he didn't want it to be a Chil Hashem, such a thing that he's getting killed by his son, a king. The Eibush is allowing this to happen. How could it be? So he said, you know what, I'm going to do something that will appear that I'm serving Avodah Zarah. And then when I'll be killed, people will say, he deserved it because he served Avodah Zarah, so it won't be a Chil Hashem. And then when he'll be killed. So where do we see this that he wanted to do this? Shana, the pasuk says, Vayihi David ba ad harosh. He came to the Rosh, to the head. Simply it means he came to the head of the mountain, I think which was in the place of Har HaZeisim, where he used to bow down towards the Beis HaMikdash. To the place of the Beis HaMikdash, there was no Beis HaMikdash yet, but he came there to that place. But the Gemara darshans, when it says Rosh, ve'ein Rosh el Avodah Zarah. Rosh means he came to a place of Avodah Zarah. Where do we see that Rosh is a term for Avodah Zarah? Shanam, because it says, by Nebuchadnezzar, v'hu tzalme reishe didav tov. He saw an image of a head like gold that refers to Avodah Zarah. So that's what David HaMelech wanted to do. But Navihine, there, when he had this idea, Likrasai came towards David HaMelech, Chushe ha'arki, which was Karua Katante, his garment was torn, Va'adam al Reisha, and earth on his head, And Amalei to David, he says to David HaMelech, Yoimru, people will say, Melech shekamaischa, a king like you, Yaved Avodah Zarah, serving Avodah Zarah, why are you doing this? So Amalei, David HaMelech explained him why he wanted to do this. That Melech shekamaisi yahargenu benai, a king like me, the Eibusher would allow that his son should kill him. So Yaved Avodah Zarah, let me do something which will appear like I'm serving Avodah Zarah, and then V'al Yischal Shem Shemayim b'Farhesia. And then the Eibusher's name will not be desecrated in public by the fact that my son will kill me. So Chushi Arki answered David HaMelech and said, it's not necessary. My time, why did you get married to a Yefas Toyar? And because Avshalom was the son of a Yefas Toyar, that's a woman from a war that you have a relation with, and then she's Megayer. So you got married to a Yefas Toyar. That's why you have such a kind of son. So in other words, you did an Aveda. So Amalei, but David says, Yefas Toyar, that's not an Aveda. Rachmana Sharya. The Torah says that this is allowed. But Amalei, Chushiarki says to David HaMelech, but le darshis smuchin, do you not darshan the psukim where what it says right after this? The Samachle, the pasuk says, Ki ish ben sayir remayre. A person has a son that's a ben sayir remayre, which means kalanaisa yefas tayar. It's allowed, but then yeshle ben sayir remayre, as a son of ben sayir remayre. So therefore, the fact that Avshalom, his son, wants to kill him, and it would happen, it would not be a chil Hashem, because everyone wouldn't understand that this is because of what it says in the pasuk. It's been Seder Amidah, so therefore it's not necessary for David HaMelech to do something that would appear that he's serving Avodah Zarah. Darish Rabdustoi, the min, Biri. Rabdustoi, Darshan, from Biri. Lama David Daime. What is David HaMelech compared to when he comes and asks Hashem for forgiveness for the Aveda with Bathsheba? L'seicher kuti. To a seicher, a kuti seicher. What's this kuti seicher? So Rashi says, they sell little by little in order to be able to get money little by little from someone, and then before you know it, you buy from someone one shmonzer, another thing, another small thing, and then before you know it, you bought a lot. So same thing over here. David HaMelech comes, he doesn't ask the Eibusher for forgiveness for all of his Avedas all at once, but slowly, little by little. Because we see here, David says to the Eibusher, who could understand when a person does an Aveda inadvertently, forgive me for this? Amalei, the Eibusher says, Shavikilach, it's forgiven for you. Then he says, Uministaris nakeni. From those Avedas that are done in hiding, but it's b'mezid though, that Eibusher should forgive me for this as well. The Eibusher says, Shavikilach, it's forgiven. Then he says, Gami Zaydim chasei chavdecha. From Avedas that are done b'mezid and even in public, the Eibusher should forgive me, Shavikilach. The Eibusher forgave him for that as well. So slowly he's going different Avedas more and more. Then he says, Al yimshulubi az esam. What this means is the leilishtabi rabbanon, that the Talmidei Chacham should not speak about these Avedas that I had. That's the al yimshulubi, that they shouldn't speak later on about this. So the Eibusher says, Shavikilach, it's granted to you. Then he says, V'nikesi mi pesharov. What does this mean? Shalayichtov sorchani. My Aveda should not at all be mentioned in the psukim. In the story where it says, the story with Bathsheba, it should not be mentioned at all. Amaloi, and this the Eibusher says, Efsher, I can't do this. And the Eibusher explains why. Because Uma Yud shenetalti misarai. The letter Yud that I took from Sarai's name, Oimid v'tzeveach kama shanim, is standing and screaming in front of me many years that Yud that was supposed to be there by Sarai's name was removed from the Torah. And then, till when? Ad shebaya Yeshua v'yisaftiloi shenemar, I added the Yud there to the name of Yeshua, because it says, Shenemar v'yikra Moshe lohoshaya benun Yehoshua. So you see that when you remove just one letter from the Torah, there's a whole commotion about this. Kol parsha kula alachas kama v'kama. Definitely to remove a whole parsha in the Torah, I can't remove it. Okay, going on to what David HaMelech says, V'nikesi mi pesharov. What was he asking the Eibusher? Here, another pshat. Rav, so Rav says, that's not how you read it. Again, let me do this. V'nikesa mi pesharov. Omar, David HaMelech says in front of the Eibusher, Omar Lefanav, Ribayne Shalayla, Master of the Universe, Mechayli al Eisei Oven Kuloi. Forgive me completely on this Aveda of Bathsheba. So Omar, the Eibusher says, Kfar Oset Shloime bin Chaloime b'chachmasai. Shloime, your son, is going to say with his wisdom that Hayachte ish eish b'cheikai or begadol le'tisrvena. Could a person have fire in his pocket and it's not going to burn his garments? A person will walk on coals, and his feet should not get burnt by this. So Cain, the same thing also. One that has a relation with an Eishes Ish, or it would appear that it was an Eishes Ish. Lo Yenoke can't become totally clean. One that touches her cannot become completely clean. So Amalei, so David HaMelech asks, Kol Hachi Nitra Dahu Gavra. That individual referring to himself should be completely Nitra. He should be pushed away because of this Avera. There's no way I could be forgiven for this completely. Amalei, the Eibusha says, Kabel Alecha Yisurin. If you accept upon yourself to have pain, so that will atone for the Avera. Kibel Olav. So David HaMelech accepted this upon himself. So Amar Rav Yudah Amar Rav, Shisha Chadashim Nitztara David. For 6 months, David HaMelech was the Mitzayra. And when Nistala came in the Shechina was removed from him for 6 months, and also a Pirshum Mimena Sanhedrin, and the Sanhedrin also separated from him. Where do we see this? Nitztara, he was a Mitzayra because the Chsev, Techateni, you should cleanse me be'ezov, and with this ezov and the etar, and I'll be pure, and Techapseini, Mishel Galban, and you'll wash me with like Snow White. It uses here the term Ezov. Ezov is used when you are cleansing, purifying a Mitzayra. Now, how do we know Nistalka Himena Shechina? The Chesiv, the Pasuk says, Ashivali, return to me, Sisayin, Yeshecha, the joy of your help, and Ruach Nediva Tismacheni. That the Spirit of Hashem, that's generous, should support me. So we see the Spirit of Hashem was removed from him until this point. The Sanhedrin also was removed from him. The Chsev, Yeshuvali Yireyecha, those that fear you, the Sanhedrin should return to me. Now, how do we know that this was for 6 months? Shisha Chadashim Minalan, the Chsiv, because it says, V'hayomim Hashemalach David al Yisrael. How long was David HaMelech a king for? Arbayim Shana, 40 years. Where do we see 40 years? Because Bechevrain Malach Sheva Shanim. In Hebron, he was a king for 7 years. And then it would be Yerushalayim Malach Shloshim V'Shalei Shana. Then in Yerushalayim for 33 years. So that's 40 years. But if you look in another place, the Pasuk actually says, Oksiv, that Bechevrain Malach al Yehuda Sheva Shanim V'Shisha Chadashim. That he was a king there for 7 years and an additional 6 months. So we're missing 6 months. Why only 40 years? V'hani Shisha Chadashim Loi Kachashiv. So these additional 6 months are not being counted here. Because Shma Mina Nitztara. The reason is because at that time he was a Mitzayra for those 6 months. So now Amalafana Ribayne Shalayla Machayli.
Took off.
Yeah, that's what it says. The Eibusha forgave him for this. Amalafana Ribayne Shalayla Machayli Alayse Oven. So forgive me for this Avera because he had this Yisurim. So Machalach, the Eibusha said that it's forgiven for you. Asay imi oisle teva v'yiru sayne v'yevoshu ki ata Hashem azartani v'nichamtani. There should be a sign that all my enemies should see that the Eibusha has forgiven me. Amalei, so the Eibusha answers David HaMelech, b'chayecha eni media. In your lifetime, I won't make this known. Aval ani media b'chay Shloime bincha. By your son Shloime, it'll become known that you were a tzaddik and you were totally forgiven. How? What happened? Because Shebishah Shabana Shloime is Beis HaMikdash. When Shloime Melech built the Beis HaMikdash, Bikesh Lahachnis Arayin Lebeis Kachek Kadashim. He wanted to bring the Arayin into the Kodesh HaKadashim, and he couldn't. Daf Kusharim Zebezeh. The doors, the entrances were closed. Couldn't bring in the Arayin. And in other places it says that he built a large Arayin, which was actually too large to enter into the space. And he wanted that it should open up a derech nes, that it should be able to place it in the Kodesh HaKadashim, and he couldn't bring it in. Ama esrim va'arba renanais v'loinena. He praised the Eibishter, and he davened to the Eibishter with 24 different expressions, and it still it was not answered. Amar, and then he also said, Su'u sh'aram l'sheichem v'yinasu pischei yelam, that the doors should open up, and v'yavei melech hakaved, miza melech hakaved, Hashem izis v'gibar Hashem gibar melchama. And then v'nam asu sh'aram l'sheichem v'su pischei yelam v'yavei melech hakaved v'geimer. And after all of this, v'loinen, and he was still not answered. But then, kivin shamar. Then, as we see in another place, the pasuk says that Shlomo said, Hashem Elokim, al tashiv penei mishichecha. Don't turn away the face of your Mashiach, and which is Zachra lachazdei David avadecha. Remember the kindness of David, your servant. Then miyad nene ba'yisusha. Sorry, miyad nene. He was answered, and it opened up. He was able to bring the Aron inside. So ba'yisusha nepchu penei sayne David kishule kedera. All those enemies of David HaMelech had said that he was a sinner and they rebelled against him. Their face became like the bottom of a pot. V'yadu kol Yisrael, and all Yidden knew shemachal HaKadosh Baruch Hu alei siyavim. The Eibusha completely forgave David HaMelech for that aveda. This is the conclusion of the story with David HaMelech, which again the Gemara brings this in here because this was one of the reasons why Achitophel rebelled against David HaMelech. Achitophel was not one of those individuals that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba. The last one that's mentioned here that doesn't have a chelik in Olam Haba in the Mishnah is Gehazi, which was a servant by Elisha. The Chsev, the Pasuk says, Vayelech Elisha Damesek. Elisha traveled to Damesek. Why did he go to Damascus? Lehecha Ozal. Rabbi Yechanan shahalach lahachzer Gehazi b'tshuva. He came to bring Gehazi to do tshuva. And he didn't do tshuva. Amaloi, Elisha tells Gehazi, Chazer bach, you should do tshuva. Amaloi, so Gehazi says to Elisha, Kach mukum lani mimcha. I learned from you. Hachaita umachti es harabim, one that sins and brings many to sin. Ein maspikim biyodei lasas tshuva. He can't. He's not allowed. The Eibush doesn't give him the kach to do tshuva. Now, what is it that he did that he caused many to sin? My ovad. Iked amri. Some say that even she'eves tala lachatis Yeravam. He hung this magnet by the avodah zarah of Yeravam. Yeravam made an egel, and he put this magnet up high in the air, and then vehemida ben shemayim ladatz, and that caused that the egel should be suspended in the air between heaven and earth. So people thought that this brought them to believe in this avodah zarah. V'kedamri, others say what he did is Shem chakak b'fiyah. He put a name of the Eibishter into the mouth, he engraved it in the mouth of the egel of the avodah zarah. V'hoisam achrezes v'yimeres, and because of this, the egel was announcing and saying, Anoichi v'lo yiyeh lecha. So he caused Yidden to follow after this egel. V'kedamri, a third opinion is Rabbanon dacha mikamei. He would push away Talmidim that wanted to come and learn in the yeshiva of Elisha. He would not allow them to come in. Shenem, as the pasuk says, after Gehazi left, that Vayomru b'nei Neviim el Elisha, Hinena makom asher anachnu yeshvim sham lefanecha, the place that we're sitting in front of you, tsar mimenu. It's too narrow, it's too small for us to be here. From this we understand until this point when Gehazi was there and he didn't allow the students to come and learn from him, it was not too small. So he didn't allow the students to come and learn from him. That's the Chayta Machti. Now here regarding Elisha, says the Gemara, Elisha and Gehazi, it brings the beginning of the story of what he did, what was wrong. The Tanur Rabbanu we learned in the Braisa. La'olam tehei smoil deiche v'yamin mekareves. That your attitude should always be that on one hand, smoil deiche, with the left hand you push away, which means there has to be some measure of discipline, but it's only smoil with the left, which is weaker. But v'yamin, the right hand, which is stronger, with more involvement, is mekareves, to bring close. Like Elisha, and unlike what happened with Elisha, shedachav, that is, like Gehazi b'shtei yadayim. Gehazi pushed him away with both of his hands. And here's where it's also added in from what was taken out of the Gemara by the censors. That Yeshua ben Prachi pushed away Oisei also with two hands. Now, back into the Gemara. The Chsiv, the pasuk says, the story of in the Gemara is going to say about Naaman. Naaman was a king from Aram that was a Metzora, and he was looking to heal himself, and he came to Elisha to get healed. Right, so now this Naaman, after Elisha healed him, as the Gemara is going to say the story, he offered Elisha to give him all of his possessions as a reward for what happened, and Elisha refused to take this. But then Gehazi ran after him to take these gifts from Naaman. So here, the pasuk there says, "Vayemen Naaman." Naaman says to Gehazi, "Hoyel v'kach kikarim." Take these kikarim, literally means loaves, but it means gold and silver. Vayifret by vayotze kikarim kesa v'goyim, the silver kikarim and additional things that he gave to Gehazi. Vayeme elav Elisha, and Elisha says to Gehazi, Me'ayin Gehazi, from where are you coming, Gehazi? Vayeme lehalach avdecha anavana, I didn't go anywhere. Vayeme elav, so Elisha says to him, Loi livi halach kasher hafach ish me'al merkavti lekrascha ha'eis lakachta. He said you did go somewhere. You went, and Naaman turned around to you, and lakachta you took from him, esakesev, silver, lakachta begadim, you took garments from him, v'zeisim, v'kramim, v'tzayinu, bakar, avadim, shvachais, all these things you took from him, from Naaman, as a reward for this that I healed him. You went and took from him. So now here the Gemara is going to describe the story that happened, but first the Gemara asks the question on what it says here, that Elisha is telling Gehazi, you went and took all these payments from him after I did not want to take any reward from him, and it mentions in the pasuk 8 different things that he took from him. But the question is, did Gehazi actually take all these 8 things? Kesef ubegadim hu deshakal. He only took silver and clothing from him. So why does it mention all these additional things? So the Gemara answers, it's a remes. What's the remes here? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak explains, at that time, Elisha was teaching Torah, and Gehazi was there learning with him. What were they learning? They were learning about the tumah that is by the Shmeinish Shratzim, that caused tumah. 8 Shratzim. Now, what happened is Naaman Sartzava Melech Aram Hoya. Naaman is one of the generals by the king of Aram. Mitzaira, he became a Mitzaira. So Amra Lei Hahi Revisa Dishtaboy Ma'arad Yisrael. So this young girl from that was captured from Eretz Yisrael said to him, Ya'azlas Legabi Elisha, if you go to Elisha, Masilach, he will heal you from your tzaras. Kiyasa, when he came to Elisha, Amalei, Elisha says to him, Ziltvel b'Yarden, go and immerse in the Yarden, and you will be completely healed from your tzaras. Amalei, so Naaman didn't believe this. He said, you're mocking me. You're saying if I'll just be toivel in the water and that will heal me. Amri lei, Hanada dahava ba'adei. So those that were with Naaman said to him, my nav kalach mina. What do you care? Zil nasi, go and try, do what he said, and toivel in the Yarden. Azal v'toval b'Yarden, he went and he toiveled in the Yarden, and v'itzi, he was healed. So now Naaman also he came back to Elisha and Aisile Kolhani denoket. He brought all of his possessions that he had and he wanted to give it as a gift to Elisha for healing him. Elisha did not want to accept any of these gifts. So Gehazi, so after this, when Naaman left, so Gehazi, Ifta Mikamei Elisha, he took leave from Elisha, and Azal he went and Shakal, Maida Shakal, he went and he did take from Naaman reward what he took. And then Va'afkit, he put it aside somewhere. And Kiasa, when he came back to Elisha, Elisha sees that now Gehazi had a tzaras that is on his head. Why? Because he went and took these things from Naaman, so he got now this tzaras. Amalei, so Elisha tells him, Rosha, Higia Eis Little Schash Meinish Ratzim. Did it come the time for you to be rewarded for the Torah that you learned? You're taking a reward in this world, taking it from Naaman when you weren't supposed to take. You think that the reward for your learning of Torah, and he's mentioned to him the Shemona Shratzim because that's what they learned. That was the last sugi in the Torah that they learned, the Shemona Shratzim. So when you're taking reward for this, so that was the remez that when it says before that he took, and it mentions in the pasuk 8 different items that corresponds to the Shemona Shratzim, the sugi that they learned, which was eight Shratzim. So v'tzaras Naaman. So then what happened was that v'tzaras Naaman tidbak. Elisha tells him that the tzaras of Naaman tidbak b'cha will be in you ub'saracha and in your descendants adaylam forever. Vayetze milafanav mitzayra kashalak. He went out and he was a mitzayra like snow. He was a mitzayra, and it was by him and by his descendants as well. As the Gemara brings, v'arba nashim hoy mitzayraim pesach hashar. There were 4 people that were mitzayraim outside. Amar Rabbi Yechanan, this is Gehazi u'shleishes banav. It refers to Gehazi and his 3 children. Now the Gemara concludes, similar to what it said before, that by Gehazi, that Lo'ilam to Yesh should be Smoil Deicha, but Yemin Mekareves. Amar Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Rab Shimon ben Elazar said, Yetzer Tinoik v'Isha Tei Smoil Deicha v'Yemin Mekareves. These 3 individuals, by the Yetzahara, and by a child, and by a Isha, it should be Smel Deich and Yemim Mekareves. So regarding the Yetzer, speaking of here about the Yetzer for marital relations, so it's not something you can be Deicha completely, but yeah, it has to be Smel Deich and Yemim Mekareves, because otherwise a person will not want to be with his wife at all. And similar also regarding Tinik and Isha, Rashi says, Daiton Kala, and if you push them away completely, with Hardasim and Oilim, you'll push them away completely. So it has to be both Smel Deich and Yemin Mekareves. The Rebbe spoke about this Gemara once by Riches this Lashon of Smail Deicha and Yemin Mekareves in a Fabrengen of Chafav Tav Shalom Vav, and it's also actually in a Pesach Sicha and Chelik Yud Zayin. And there the Rebbe points out that even though it says in the Gemara first Smail Deicha and then Yemin Mekareves, but really the Seder is supposed to be the opposite. First comes Yemin Mekareves and then comes Smail Deicha. And the Rebbe proves it when you get to Tinik, when you're Mechanach a child. The Rambam says, Hi, Mechanach a child. First you give him candies and you give him things to draw him close. Smail Deicha comes afterwards. The Gemara here is saying first Smel Decha and then Yemim Mekareves, because even in a case where there's already Smel Decha, like it was with the case of Gehazi, even after the Smel Decha, you have to additionally add Yemim Mekareves, as Elisha went and tried to be Machzir and Betshuva and so on. But B'derech Klal, Smel Decha comes, Yemim Mekareves comes first. There's more over there in the Sikha that Rebbe explains by Riches this Indian. Here you have in the side of the Gemara, in the Eis Vav of the Agos V'tziyunim, they bring the story of Isaiah Ish, that also similar, that Yeshua ben Prachia was Merachekim and then later he wanted to be Mekaravim. We once had it in the Gemara before. I read it, we went through it already. I think it was actually here in Masechta Sanhedrin, even. We had it before. Okay, so we're not going to go through it now again. But it's a similar story of Shmuel Dech and Yemin Mekareves. Talk to Gemara weiter. Tan Rabbana, we learned in Braisa Gimel Chaloyim Chola Elisha. Speaking about Elisha, so Elisha became ill 3 different times. Echad, one was because Shagira Davin Betunaikis. Because of what he said, he instigated bears to come and attack children. This was when Elisha was, I think it was by the city of Yerichai, where the people embarrassed him, and as a result, the bears came and attacked the people of that city. But because of this, he became ill. Another time when he became ill was because he pushed away Gechazi from him with both of his hands. And and then the 3rd time when he became ill, that's when he passed away. Shanem, as it says, and that's when he passed away. Now, Gemara says based on this as follows: Ad Avram that is, until Avram Avinu, zikna, there was no aging, which means kol the chazil Avram, and therefore whoever saw Avram, Amar, he would say, Hi Yitzchak. He would think that it's Yitzchak. And kol the chazil Yitzchak, one that saw Yitzchak, Amar Hi Avram. They confused and said that this is Avram, because they looked the same, right? And there was no aging, so there's no difference. So by Avram Rachmi, the Lahevele Zikna. Avram begged Hashem that it should be Zikna, that he should look different than his son, Shenem of Avram Zokeim Baba Yomim. That's when the Eibusha made it in the nature that a person's hairs turned white and you can see Zikna. Now it's a similar, an additional thing. Ad Yaakov Le'ava Chulshe. Until Yaakov Avinu, a person did not get weak before he passed away, but he would just die suddenly. So a person would not know when his time is coming. Boy Rachme, so Yaakov David and begged Hashem that there should be, a person should be weak and know that his time comes before he passes away, and he should be able to gather his children. Shanema, as the pasuk says, Vayemelu Yosef, Hini Avicha Chayle, that your father is not well, and then he passed away. Now here, come bringing this back to Elisha. Ad Elisha lehave inish chalish de mispach. Till Elisha, there wasn't a person that got ill that was able to be healed from this. Which means, it doesn't mean b'chlal any sickness. It means when a person was like mamish, deathly ill, there's nobody that ever recovered from this. But v'asa Elisha, boy rachme, Elisha came and davened in v'isbach. Twice he was very, very ill, and still he recovered. Shanem, as it says, v'Elisha chalyas shayam is by, that there was only a 3rd time that he became ill and then he passed away. But this he davened to the Eibusha that a person should be able to be healed even from such a kind of illness.